All right. So let me just get this. So my name's Nancy Allen. I've been a chef for probably 35 years. I went to culinary school in San Francisco at the California Culinary Academy. And I worked at Hattie's, which was a restaurant in Suttons Bay. And then, oh God, I think I started catering. I did catering. My husband and I decided, I taught quite a bit. My husband and I decided we wanted to move to Manhattan. So I got a job at 2 culinary schools there. We lived there for about 5 years. And then came back and I opened a restaurant here. What a crazy, stupid thing that was. But it was really good. And, you know, I've learned a lot along the way. And then I taught at Chateau Chantel classes every winter. And then wrote this textbook, and I did a lot of food writing as well. So this is first class I've taught in probably 5-6 years. I have rheumatoid arthritis, so the hands are not all that attractive when you're teaching. So we're doing Thai today. We're going to do 3 dishes. I don't know if you've got recipes. I hope you do.
Yeah.
We're going to do chicken satay. You have a peanut sauce recipe, but we won't make the peanut sauce. We're going to also make a classic Thai coconut curry with vegetables that you can mix and match with. I've written it so that it is what I did in the restaurant. I would make the base and I would freeze it into portions, and then I could pull it out and I could put vegetables in it, steamed vegetables. I could put shrimp. I could put chicken. So it's really flexible that way. And that's the way I like to teach. I want you to be able to put your mark on these recipes. And, you know, regular Indian curries are the same way. You can make a base and then, you know, freeze it and then pull it out when you're in a hurry, have curry in a hurry, and put whatever you like in it.
Well, it won't work, love. Don't bother because the computer's on first.
So Thai cuisine is based on Ayurvedic principles that came out of India. The two countries that were the biggest influence on Thailand were India and China. And you'll see that Thailand has these wet curries. You'll see the curry paste that I'll use. But India had powdered dry curries. And so in Thailand, they mix the two, but they're a wet curry. And then they also use long grain rice. In this case, not basmati, but jasmine rice in Thailand. And it's very nutty. It's a nutty long grain rice, which is high in amylose, not amylopectin. So the long grain is a lower glycemic. It doesn't raise your blood sugar as quickly. And in fact, if you cook it and with a little bit of fat and then cool it for 12 hours, it will be less digestible. It doesn't uptake into your system. So about 60% of the carbohydrates they're passed through your body. Interesting. It's called resistant starch. So again, 12 hours after you've cooked it, you cool it for 12 hours and then you can eat it, and it will be less, it will raise your blood sugar less. It'll, yeah, anyway. So the Chinese, a lot of the chopping methods, the quick stir fry, and vegetable techniques came out of Chinese techniques. And also there, you know, parts of Thailand like China are very, very poor. So things had to be cut small to cook quickly. And hence satay was wonderful because it was thinly sliced meat, cooked, boom, boom. So it didn't require a lot of long cooking as in France. there are four distinct regions in Thailand: northern, poor and spicy; northeastern, rustic and creative; central is very mild and sweet; and the southern isthmus and the Gulf, very tropical and simple. So if you would go there, you would see these differences in the food. It's never been colonized by the Europeans, which is wonderful. There's palace, peasant, and street cuisine. The palace cuisine was all of the cooks' descendants of the royal wives actually opened restaurants. And then peasant are homey, very simple dishes, and street food is the kind of stuff like satay, noodles, mango with sticky rice, those kinds of things. There are four basic Thai curry pastes. There's a red, which we're using today, yellow, green, and jungle. And I like this brand, Masri. I visited there when I was in Thailand, where you can see it. And really highly flavorful. In fact, you can just use that, sauteed in a little coconut oil, throw in some coconut milk, and boom, you've got a base for a curry. It's really fast. Today, I'm using one that's available, pretty easily found at Meyer and at Oriana. And it's a pretty good quality one too. I will say this, one of my favorite flavors.
Hey, Nancy, how do you spell that brand of curry?
It's Masri, Maesri. And the Asian market on 14th Street carries this, and they can get you this coconut milk, Arroy D. This is the best coconut milk I've ever found. It tastes like coconut. It's really amazing. I have this one from Oriana. It's not bad. So if you're in a pinch, this one's good because it's just coconut and water. And those are Thai kitchen, but the Arroy D, it comes from Vietnam. And then fish sauce is a big part of, and this comes from Oriana as well. This is this means the protein, 40N, nitrogen, and you can see this is, if you look at it in the light, it's got some clarity to it. It's very sweet compared to other ones. It's not bitter, and it's just the best fish sauce there is. And they should say whatever number, and 30 and up is considered really excellent. This, once you open it, you refrigerate it, and it's good for up to 2 years. Okay, so yeah, yellow, red, green, and jungle. I don't buy the jungle one. It's probably a little too spicy for me. Another ingredient is palm sugar, which is the sap of the coconut palm, much like our palm, much like our maple syrup. So I've got some here. You can't really see it. I'll open this up. It comes like this in this big hard lump. Palm sugar. So they store the tree just like they do maple syrup, and I've soaked this so it's soft. So when it gets, when you get it and it's so dry and hard, I just stick a little bit of it in water, and then you can get the syrup out of it too. It's a little easier to use. Shrimp paste, that's pretty stinky. I don't have any. Coconut milk we talked about, cilantro, kaffir lime leaves. I have a tree at home, it's quite large. Has to go out every year into the sun, otherwise it dies. I wish you could smell these. They're incredibly fragrant. They don't smell like lime. They just smell really flowery, and they add this beautiful. They're quite green, and these have been frozen, so they last very well frozen. And these are going to go in and simmer in the coconut curry and just give it that little extra oomph. Lemongrass. So with lemongrass, I've learned I don't chop it and mince it unless I have a really good grinder. But I only use the bottom 3 inches. The rest of it I discard or make tea with it. So, and I smash it and I let it go into something, but it's so hard to chew. I've learned not to mess with it. Thai basil, galangal, those are all things that you'll see.
Libby, what was the green leaves that you had frozen? What were those?
Oh, that's called, they're called kaffir lime leaves, but that's an old term that we're not using anymore. They're called now makrut, M-A-K-R-U-T, or K-A-F-F-I-R. Kaffir is a nasty term for a human being. It's not a very nice, it's, you know, it's kind of like the N-word. So we don't use it too much anymore, but I call them lime leaves or makrut. And you can find them at the Asian market frozen, I believe. Or you can buy a little tree online and put it out in the summer. And it's, I mean, man, mine produces a lot of leaves. All right, so now the other thing I want to do is just go quickly over the recipes. If you have them, you can pull them out. The first thing I'm going to do is I'll demo how to cut the meat for the satay. And this is the coconut milk with ginger. I chopped ginger in it and a tablespoon of fish sauce. And then this I made earlier. I'm going to show you in a bit how to toast the seeds. And then you grind them and put some turmeric in there. And it's very fragrant. If anybody knows garam masala, it's very much like garam masala. Toasted spices that can be added and not cooked. And because they've been toasted, they give a lot of flavor. And then we're going to smash the lemongrass right now. I've got my trusty little hammer here. This is my father's. He made this for me. So you can see that. So you just smash it to break it up so that you can get the flavor. And then I'm just going to cut it at the 3-inch mark. And I could cut bigger pieces with this because we're not going to eat the marinade. And the other thing is there are substitutions for a lot of these things. So one of the things I substitute lemongrass for is lemon zest, or I don't know if anybody knows what preserved lemons are, but I make them. And I can, if anybody wants a recipe, I can send it in. And you can get it from Oriana, but basically I have about 7 lemons and juice them. And then I pack them with about 6 tablespoons of salt into the quart, you know, and save the juice. And then you pour the juice over. So use kosher salt. And you've got these preserved lemons, and I'll scrape out the pulp, throw that out, and then chop up the whole skin. And that is really an excellent substitute for these lemongrass. All right, so we've got the marinade together. And there you see it's got turmeric and ginger and milk. And I'm gonna.
People in the chat would love the preserved lemon recipe, so we'll connect after. And they're wondering how long preserved lemons stay good in the fridge for.
Good question. About a year. So they, you know, when you make them, they take about 4 to 6 weeks, depending upon in room temperature, depending upon how warm your house is. If it's in the winter time, then my house is usually warmer. Well, cooler than in the summer, actually. So it takes a little longer. I usually make these in the fall, or yeah, I make them in the spring, I guess, because that's when we get so much citrus. And then I leave them out for a few weeks until I see them softening out. You know, usually it's about 5 weeks. I've found it's kind of like fermenting sauerkraut. All right. So I've got chicken here that has been cut into thin strips. Now it can be pounded with this thing, or I have a meat pounder. So I'm just kind of just gently pounding it down, and then that kind of thins it down into a strip. So all of that, I'm not going to worry about pounding it. If you weren't here, I would, if we weren't, you know, kind of in a little bit of a time frame, I would probably pound them. All right. So, let me see here at the, yeah. Okay, so you can see this chicken breast. If you were doing beef, you want to go cross grain, because that cuts the fibers in the meat, and it tenderizes it. If you've ever had a flank steak, you know it has definite fibrous lines, and you want to cut cross grain to that because it keeps it more tender. So with this, there's a little bit of that going on, but what I'm really concerned with is I want longer, thinner pieces. So I'm going to start here, and always keeping your fingers back, working on your knuckles, and gripping your knife if you have to choke it up a little, and cut very thin slices. And you can thin them out just because this is such tender chicken, the organic stuff from Oriana. And this is about, I guess it's 1.5 pounds of meat, which will make a lot of satay. Probably not cook it all today. And then we'll let this marinate, and we'll cook it at the end. I'll make the rice next, and then the curry. This could marinate overnight. If you do fish, you would marinate it 15 minutes, maybe 20 at the most in the refrigerator. But the chicken, the marination goes a lot faster if it's at room temperature. So you could do chicken or beef at room temperature. Ooh, that's a juicy thing. I need another pair of those. All right, so I'm going to put that over here to marinate. And then we'll go on to our next recipe, which is, oh, the other thing I wanted to tell you is turmeric is really important for the color. Thinly sliced. You can do this in a Ziploc bag, the marinating. I'm not into plastic, so I don't. But a lot of people do, and it takes up less space in the fridge, and you can mush it. Metal is really good. With my little grill here, you can use bamboo, which you've soaked for about an hour. These skewers are metal, and they're square. So the rounded ones tend to slide all around. So the square ones keep the meat so that when you flip it, it stays the same. Okay, and then when we cook them, I'll show you that. I'm going to get rid of this chicken board. All right, so then the next one is the City Kitchen Thai coconut curry base. So you can make this, I'm giving you half a recipe, which is enough for, 4 or 5 servings, or I've given you a 2x recipe. And if you do the 2x, you can freeze it. And then, in small, portions, and then pull it out of the freezer, toss it in, heat it up gently, and then throw in, shrimp, chicken, whatever you like, or vegetarian, you can throw in chickpeas. And then I like to steam the vegetables ahead because I can control, especially broccoli, it gets so yellow if you cook it in here too long. So you can control the color and everything. So today we're going to do broccoli. And so I've got a little piece of broccoli. I just wanted to show you the way that I cut broccoli, which you think, oh, I know how to cut broccoli. But when I went to culinary school, I thought I knew how to cut broccoli, but I didn't. So I will peel this stem if it's very, and I do the pieces on the end. Can you see that? There, that's better. And then these florets, if I want to make them a little smaller, I just cut down through the stem, but I don't go into the flower portion and I pull them apart. That way you don't get all that crumbly, and they just stay a nicer look, huh? That was Culinary School 101. Then carrot, we're going to use a carrot here, and I've already got all done. And I'm going to do a little different cut on this. I'm going to do I forget what they call this, but it's a roll cut where I'm just turning it a quarter turn and cutting it into a longer piece. So it's this angular bit, I turn that up. Just for fun. You can dice it, you can slice it into rounds, whatever you like. Doesn't matter. Okay. Oh, and then the bell pepper we're going to use. Yeah, and I've got some sugar snap peas, a little bit of cauliflower. You could put green beans. A lot of chefs will cut this straight down this way, but my old school method is cutting the 2 ends, opening that up. And then I like to rid it of that little white bitter bit of fiber and all of the seeds. I am so particular about that because the seeds do make things bitter. As you know, that's where most of the heat in chilies is in the seeds and in this fibers, white part. So we're going to just wash my knife. We're going to add this at the end, and it will. What should I do? I think I'll cut this into little squares. The idea with cutting, it's always to be the safest you can. So if you have an onion, which I'll show you with shallots, you always want to make sure that it's you got a stable, that you're stable. And try not to chase food around on your cutting board. I guess I'll just put these in. Well, I've got them right here. Throw those in at the end. So there's a lot you can do really thin bits, whatever. Okay, so here's a shallot, much like an onion. It's one of in the onion family. So with an onion, I would cut off the stem end and leave the root end attached. So we're pretending this is an onion. And then cut it in half through that root end, 2 halves. And then if you want to get the skin off of old shallots or old garlic, just sit them in, soak them in a little bit of warm water for about 15 minutes, and that'll pull them right off. It's one of my most hated things, is to have to try to pick that off. So I'm using the tip of the knife, and I'm just cutting in up to, but not through the root end, okay? Really, really important, because this will hold the onion together. Can you see that? So that root end is still intact. And then holding it together, I will just dice it thinly this way. And then discard the root. And then with shallots, if you want them very chopped up, I love this knife, by the way. Martin Yan Can Cook was one of my instructors in culinary school. And he had his name on this knife, but it's just a Dexter knife. And boy, I tell you, it's really easy on the hands. So you've got a mince there. I will put that with the other that I did earlier. All right. So the lemongrass will do the same with this. We'll pound that. That's going to go in. And off too. And off that. Right up in. And sometimes you'll see lemongrass sold in boxes. Make sure that you get the end that has the root and the bulb. You don't want, sometimes you'll see 2 of these in there. You don't want that unless you're making tea. All right. Let's see, what else do we have? So what we're going to start, one of the things I do is I'll take shallots, cilantro stems, and ginger root, and I will grind them up and add those to the red curry paste. It really pops up the flavor and freshens everything up. So that's my little take. You don't have to do that. If you're in a hurry, just take the red curry paste or the green, throw it in there, infuse it into the coconut oil, and you're good to go. You can put your meat in there and cook meat in it, and it infuses into the meat. But this is my way of making a really flavorful curry. And today I'm not going to grind them, but if I do at home, I have a wet grinder here that is actually an immersion blender. Let me see, it's made by KitchenAid, I think. Yeah, KitchenAid. It's, the immersion piece I've taken off, and it's got a blade inside, and I'll throw ginger, shallots, cilantro stems, and then, I can buzz grind it. So this has been an invaluable tool. It's like, oh God. I had something in my mind that I want to tell you. Oh, it'll come back. Okay, so I think what we'll do is I'm going to rinse the rice while we're at the sink. And then, cilantro stems. I wanted to tell you about cilantro stems. In Thailand, they use the root of the cilantro to make the curry paste because it's very flavorful. All right, so this is very milky. I don't know if you can see that. So I usually wash my rice 3 times in cold water. It's good to get that excess powdery rice off of it too. Because you know, rice, although rice from Asia isn't as bad, rice tends to be a real mineral absorber. Therefore, it absorbs arsenic, which is in our soil here from cotton farming. So it's a really good idea to rinse all your rice. So the third time it comes out a little clearer. Maybe you can see it there, yeah. So that's a little clearer. And then I try to, you know, if I have a strainer, I can pull it all out. Some people like to let it rest now for about 10 or 15 minutes to absorb, and that will lengthen, you know, the grain. And then for 2 cups of rice, I'm going to add 1.5 cups of cold water. And then I'll have another 1/2 cup on the side. So 2 cups so 4 cups total for long grain nutty rice. And I'm going to bring that up to a boil over here. And then I'm going to cook it 15 minutes. A little bit of salt, if you like salt. Okay, so the cilantro, I want to show you this. Very important, don't discard your stems. Cilantro stems have a lot of flavor. Yeah, just use it all. All right, so we've got stems here. All right, so they're all lined up, and I just very thinly slice them. Now, when you're slicing cilantro, it's the same thing. Just slice it, don't chop it. Cilantro is so tender, like basil. It gets mushy if you overcut it. And so I suggest just simply slicing it like this and not chopping. But I'm just doing the cilantro stems here.
We have 2 questions in the chat.
right.
Someone's asking, is it the same cooking time for brown jasmine or brown basmati rice?
White takes 15 minutes. And I don't eat brown rice anymore because of the arsenic in the skin. But I think it was 45 minutes. Can you correct me, Liddy? Do you cook brown rice?
I don't know the exact measurements. I'll do some research and report back. But
Measurements, yeah, I would say the measurements of water, definitely the same. But
and then do you ever use or suggest using a rice cooker?
yes, if you are comfortable with a rice cooker, by all means do it. I do not, because I have these wonderful all-clad pots, and I know how they work, and I'm happy with them, you know. So, but yeah, if you're happy with the rice cooker, by all means. But with a rice cooker, what I would say is do soak your rice, white rice, about 10 or 15 minutes, and then drain it. And brown rice, probably 15 to 20 minutes, I would soak it. All right, so what I think we'll do, since we have everything ready, I'm going to now do the curry. I'm going to move the computer, so close your eyes. We will let's try to do it slowly so you don't get seasick. All right, so see that?
That's perfect.
Okay, good. All right, so first thing I'll show you is, okay. All right, so this is the, these are the whole spices here. These are coriander and white pepper for the marinade for the chicken. I wanted to show you this. This is a really great technique. In fact, I used to make all my curry powders for Indian cooking. I would toast all of them ahead of time, and then you can just toss them in whenever. You know, when you make an Indian curry or a Thai curry, you want to infuse it and cook the spices in the oil, and it toasts them, gives them better flavor, but it also distributes the flavor in the dish. We have to be pretty fast about it. So I can use a spice grinder, or I have a mortar and pestle. We have another really big mortar and pestle here. So you want to watch this pretty closely. Don't go off answering your phone or anything. If you can see that, I'm not sure, but they're starting. You can see the white peppercorns aren't turning color so much, but the coriander will. And you can burn it pretty fast with a hot pan. So you want to have something there you go. When you start hearing that pop, there we go. That's a really, so you can see the color difference and the popping. And there we go. Take that out of the pan. And then we also would do cumin seed, but cumin seed takes a lot less time because it's a tiny little seed, you know. It's just, there we go. Just a tiny little seed. So that will burn very quickly. So you just want to do it until it's fragrant and it starts to get a little crackly. And then this you just would pound or grind in a spice grinder, which is actually a coffee grinder. All right. Now I have coconut oil in here. Tablespoons, and we're going to do a 1x. Okay, my rice is cooking. Start the timer, which I have here, 15 minutes. I'm not familiar with this. I have a 6-burner gas range at home, but this is a different one. My internet is so bad at home. I wish you could come to my kitchen. All right. So for the 1x, we're going to use a 1/4 cup, which is 4 tablespoons, because there's 2 tablespoons to an ounce. And I didn't chop these very finely. I'm sorry, I should have done, but I was in a hurry. Ginger, I think we need 2 tablespoons. Yep. So these just really pop the flavor up. And there's something called cracking that they do in Thailand. They use actually the fat from the coconut oil, from the coconut milk. They scoop it off the top and they cook it at a low temperature. And when the the curry paste is in there, when all of that separates, the fat starts to separate out. That's called cracking. Okay, and I've got a tablespoon of the red curry paste, commercial one. If you like it hot, you can add more. Most of my friends like it moderately. So if we'd simmered down that coconut fat from the coconut milk, it would start to exude the fat, and then it would look like this. But we're just going straight to the coconut oil. So if you don't have coconut oil, you can just scoop the fat off the top of your coconut milk. You can see it happening here already, how the redness And you see that, how the fat is starting, so that fat's starting to get colored with the curry paste, separating out a little. So we're ready now. I'm gonna put in the lime leaf and the lemongrass. And now I'm going to throw in the coconut milk. Entire 4 cups in now. Then simmer this, and we'll add the, at the point where it was frying before I added the coconut milk, you could have added some chicken, cook the chicken, and see if I can make this go down more for the rice. It's really cooking. And it will infuse the chicken with flavor. Very tasty. Or you could just add the chicken at the end. It'll still have flavor. You could marinate it with a little bit of fish sauce. So this will simmer for about 10 minutes or so. You can do it longer if you like. And then we're going to put the vegetables, the cooked vegetables in there. I'm going to put a tablespoon of fish sauce in there. I don't like to put too much in at once. Very strong flavor. If you've ever used fish sauce, the first time I used it, I thought it was bad and I threw it out. That was before I was a chef. I was trying to make Thai food. And then I found out that's how it's supposed to taste and smell. Ooh, bad. So, but this one is not quite as stinky and offensive. Quite nice. Now you can add lime juice. Let's see here. I've got lemon or lime. You can zest it, microplane. Really great tool. You want to do just 2 swipes. You don't want to get into the white part. So can you see it's not getting too deep. So don't get, this is just the zest, not that really bitter part, which of course softens up when you, and tastes wonderful when you make preserved lemons. They're salty, but they're really delightful. So anyway, this can pop up the flavor too. Lemon, lime. Okay. I'm gonna turn this down. And now we're gonna skewer some chicken. Whoa. All right, so I don't have any gloves, but oh well, I'll take off my. So, any questions while we're doing this? So I'm skewering it. I guess you can't really see that there, so I better move over here. You know, just kind of loop it on like ribbon.
I have a question about how long you studied in Thailand.
You know, I was in Thailand for about a month, and I traveled around. My mother-in-law was teaching in Shah Alam near Kuala Lumpur, and we traveled all around. So I got to eat the food, which was fantastic. I actually taught in Italy. I went to India for a month and traveled around, and went to about, oh God, maybe 4 or 5 different regions and cooking classes there. It was really fantastic. So I kind of traveled around for food, which is really so rewarding because you meet people. But Thailand, really, I learned a lot just by reading and going to a lot of restaurants and traveling in Thailand. You know, when you come back, you try to recreate some of those flavors. I'm going to move this to the back. Can you see that? Yeah, okay. I'll do a few of them. You can do these outside on the grill. Weber grill's great. But this little grill pan has been with me probably for about 20 years. And I could still find them online. I've got another one at home that's a little bigger. You want to kind of make sure there's not too much marinade on it. I don't scrape it off completely, but do one more. This one could have been pounded. It was a little thick. But you can just use one of those small skillets that I just did the spices on, and you could put plastic wrap, not plastic wrap, X that out. You could use parchment paper or wax paper, and put the chicken between those two, and then pound it with the skillet. You know, boom, boom, boom. Works really well. Okay, let's go. Get this over here and wash my hands. And in a few minutes, we will
Nancy, we have a question about step 2 of the curry.
okay.
It says in step 2 of the curry, it says cook slowly until vegetables are tender and fragrant and fat begins to separate. What vegetables are you talking about?
That's the cilantro stems, the shallots, and the ginger.
Okay, perfect.
So those are the aromatic vegetables. I'm looking for things here. Those are the aromatic vegetables. They're, you know, like for instance, French cuisine, call it a mirepoix, would be onion, celery, carrot, and leek is considered a mirepoix. And that starts many, many dishes, a soup. You can just saute those 3 vegetables, and maybe a leek in there is also kosher. And you just saute that, and it forms a base to a soup. It can form a base to a stew. Well, in this flavor combination for Thailand, shallots, ginger, lemongrass, and cilantro root or stems are considered the flavor giver. You can see the nice yellow color from the turmeric, gives it a very pleasant golden color. And you can see how it's kind of curled up and got the grill marks, really nice. What else? Any more questions? All right. I'm gonna. And now I've pre-steamed those vegetables. So here I've got a mixture of broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, little snow peas from Oriana, and then I've got some asparagus even. Now in Thailand, you probably just see carrots and broccoli and cauliflower, perhaps. Probably wouldn't see asparagus there. And then, you know, the amount of vegetables is up to you. I like a lot of vegetables. And then just heat it through. And if you wanted to add a protein to it, I would, at this point, I would have this up to a simmer, and I'd throw the shrimp in if it was, or little chunks of seafood, and then just let it cook very slowly. Put the lid on or slightly on and let it, okay, that's the rice. Second, I think I turned off the wrong one. Sorry. Technical difficulties here. Okay. So the rice has absorbed all the water. Can you see that? See the craters in there? So now I'm going to take it off the heat because it's cooked. Okay, and then I'm going to put in just a wee bit more water because it's actually pretty good. This rice is different. It's probably younger than the rice I get. I get an organic rice sometimes from when I'm traveling. I go to Whole Foods or Trader Joe's, and they have an organic basmati, but it's more aged. All right, so I'm going to give that another 15 minutes, and then I'll fluff it. You don't want to touch rice after it's just cooked. It'll turn to mush. It's got to have some time to harden up. So give it at least 15 minutes. If it's brown rice, I would give it 20. And then you can take a fork and fluff it gently.
We have a question about your pans. You mentioned a brand. What is the brand?
Pardon me, the cans?
Or the brand of your pan?
Oh, of my
So,
pans?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, all clad.
All
Yeah,
clad.
This one is actually a Cuisinart pan, but these are all clad, and these are stainless steel lined aluminum. Aluminum and copper are the 2 best conductors of heat. They conduct heat really evenly. So if you have a pan that's all aluminum or copper, and then it's lined with stainless steel, it's non-reactive. Copper and aluminum are not things I like to cook in because they're reactive. They come out into your food. And not only do they flavor it, but they're not very good for you. Okay, so this is ready. Now I'm going to add a little bit of basil and cilantro. So with the basil, many Italian cooks like to roll it up, and you can get Thai basil during the season. And then they'll slice it. So you roll it up from tip to stem and you slice it very thinly. They say that it doesn't blacken as much. I'm not really sure I'm on board with that, but it's what I was taught. And I'm just going to tear it because a knife does blacken it. So I usually do tear all of my basil, unless I'm in the restaurant and I'm doing a big, you know, a lot, then I will slice it with a knife. And that's why people have ceramic knives, because it doesn't brown, oxidize herbs and things. Okay, and then I'm gonna slice up the rest of that cilantro. I'm just slicing it. I'll show you it when I'm done. It's very coarse. You can see I just sliced it. I didn't chop it. So I'm going to throw that in as well. And if you don't like cilantro, use mint or more basil. All right. I've got family members who absolutely hate. All right, so I'm going to plate this up. And if we had the peanut sauce, we could add the peanut sauce on the plate. So here we've got the platter of the sautés. I really wish you were here. Taste it. And then we'll do a bowl. Now, normally I would taste things, but I have braces on and I can't eat anything with them on. So you don't want to serve the lime leaves or well, you can put the lime, but tell your people not to eat the lemongrass and the lime leaves. So there's you could put more herbs on. Yeah, can you see that? Okay. And if I would have made a 2X, I would have taken out half of it, put it in containers, glass containers to cool, and then I would freeze it, as I said. I'm really into cooking double for when I cook. Wow, right on target, hey?
You know, look at that. I hear the birds of J squared.
Yeah.
That's so lovely. Do you notice that if you keep the curry in the fridge for a bit, do you notice the flavors deepening or?
Yes, actually, you're right. That is what always happens, I think. The flavors really soften out. The other thing is that when you cut things in any dish, when you mince them, the flavor is going to meld together more. However, if you chop it large, you know, for instance, if you're making a mirepoix, the celery, carrots, and onions, if you make it really large, the flavors will not meld as quickly. You have to long cook them. So the size that you cut things makes a difference in how flavorful, how much flavor you get out of them, obviously. You know, when you just use a whole piece of garlic, throw it into a dish, it's very mild because you haven't mixed the allicin, you know, the enzymes, the substances that cause the garlic to have great flavor. Same with onions, all the onion family. Whenever you chop it really finely, it's really strong. But if you leave it whole or really large pieces, you know, like a half or slightly smashed garlic, you notice it's not as strong. You see, you can have different levels of flavor depending upon how you cut it.
Fascinating. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess it's more surface area
Yep.
per square of garlic.
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm gonna bring out the rice. It's not quite ready yet. It needs about another 5 minutes. But just suffice to know that cooling rice really helps that outer starch layer to harden up. And it makes it much more. I brought my beautiful tongs. Look at these. These are like what all the cool chefs use. These long needle nose tongs. Yeah, it's a much less, I don't know what I want to say. I'm thinking about this article I read about rice. Yeah, it's really wet. So this is a different rice than what I have, but it's also still really wet. Ugh. Well, sorry about that, but start out with 1.5 cups of water to 2 cups of rice. So when you have 1 cup of rice, you always use 2 cups of water. When you have 2 cups of rice, you use 1.5 cups water per cup, is kind of the rule of thumb. But with my basmati, the aged one I have, it actually takes 4 cups of water. This one I put in, I think I put in 3 cups, and it's quite wet. So I wouldn't touch this for a while yet. But anyway, can I give you my Gmail, my address, and if you have any questions, and I can send you all that preserved lemon recipe.
Yes, great idea. I'll compile a bunch of questions that we have in the chat, and we can send one big email that covers everything.
Okay.
We'll do that. All right, perfect. I'm going to stop the recording unless you have any last wisdom to impart on our cooking class.
No, not unless somebody has a question. I really appreciate it. That was fun.
That was fun. So much happening over there. I feel like I can smell it vicariously, but I know I cannot.
It's really fragrant. And that's the thing about Thai. It's big flavor. And you know, that fish sauce has high umami. And you know that word umami. It means big flavor, and it's big savory flavor. So every cuisine has some umami. Well, Thailand really knows how to really do it.
That's what I
Wow.
hear.